Filipino Online Professional Services Cooperative is because I believe that this is a cooperative that all Filipino online professionals own, control, and manage.
So, the reason kaya po ako sumali sa FOPSCo, kailangan natin ng isang sistema at isang samahan na makakatulong sa bawat isa.
This cooperative is a group na pwede silang sumama para mas magabayan sila sa kanilang freelancing journey.
Ako sumali dihan sa FOPSCo kasi para makabuligak sa ato kapwa mga freelancers, and ito talaga ang passion and my mission.
I joined FOPSCo kasi for me, lahat ng ginagawa ko sa FOPSCo is a privilege ko siya tinitignan eh. Kasi once in a lifetime in history na bigyan ka ng chance na mag-contribute.
Stepping stone na rin to para maabot yung goal.
The vision of the organization aligns with my personal vision, which is to develop and nurture an organization within Zamboanga City that provides much needed support for our online workers.
I joined FOPSCo because the people I've met have the same values, vision, and mission as mine, and that is to provide assistance to those who would like to jumpstart their career as a freelancer.
One of the reasons why I joined FOPSCo is because as a freelancer, I think it's important for us to have access to training, whether free or paid.
Wanted our individual reputations to have a collective reputation for excellence.
I wanted to be part of an organization that would be a pioneer group of individuals who will be working to promote online freelancing here in the Philippines.
The reason why I joined this organization is that I saw their mission and vision towards helping all Filipino freelancers.
I choose FOPSCo because we learn and grow as a community to help also others.
Feel more safe and secure knowing that my knowledge and skills will only come from the most renowned and experienced online freelancers and racketeras here in the Philippines.
I joined FOPSCo because I saw the potential growth is not just reaching one's goals and being successful, but there is camaraderie.
I am very inspired with their achievements and advocacy in promoting and helping Filipino freelancers.
I want to learn FOPSCo because of two things. Number one, I want to help freelancers to get a job. And number two, I want to learn more from you. I hope that here we will all grow together.
We grow together.
All right, so that's a big yes. We really are growing together. Hello and welcome to our webinar series entitled Being a Generalist or Being a Specialist. So you may turn on your cameras to all participants here in our Zoom. Okay, so again, this training is for our FOPSCo members, DICT graduates, and aspirant freelancers who want to develop, upskill, and explore more about the freelancing or the online professionals industry. Of course, this wouldn't be possible without the collaboration of Payoneer and the FOPSCo, or the Filipino Online Professional Service Cooperative. So I'm Dennis Baguio, so I'll be your moderator here, and will be in charge with your questions here in Zoom. And I would like also to acknowledge the presence of Ms. Angelique Pedroso, our technical team, and of course, if we have Facebook questions coming from FOPSCo FB viewers. And let me just remind you of our house rule. Please put your phone in silence mode and mute unnecessary noise that can interfere our webinar. And let's respect one another here. And we are also seeking for your active participation. So I guess everything is set up now. Let me just call Ms. Jessica. Hello, Ms. Jess.
Hi, Dennis.
Good
Hi, Miss
evening.
Jessica. Good evening. Okay, so let's keep things going. So, for the introduction of, or for the speaker for tonight, Miss Jessica will be the one who's going to introduce our speaker. Go ahead. You may have the presenters tonight, Miss Jess.
Hi, everyone. So, I'd like to introduce our speaker for tonight. It is our pleasure to have Samantha. So, she's a really good friend of mine over the internet. So, Samantha has worked as a digital specialist since 2009 with a focus on pay-per-click, paid social, and content marketing. She has executed paid digital campaigns targeting markets in the North America, South America, Europe, and Southeast Asia, and has worked with businesses of all sizes, from startups to enterprise. Her primary vertical is travel and tourism, and she's currently working as a Google Hotel Ads account manager for Morgan McKinley, supporting Google EMEA HQ. She's also the owner of Technopath Consulting, an e-consultancy designed to simplify digital lifestyle and business automation. Right, so help me welcome our speaker for tonight, Samantha Salazar. Hi,
Thanks so
Sam.
much, Jess. Hi everyone. So thank you, Jesse, for inviting me, and thank you to FOPSCo for making me a part of everyone's evenings today. I know it's not the best weather in the Philippines. I'm actually coming to you guys from Dublin, so it's not the best weather here either. Pareho lang tayo. Um, so yeah, my name is Samantha Salazar, and today I want to talk to you guys about being a generalist versus being a specialist and how that works for your careers. A little bit about me, I guess, to start. So, like Jessica mentioned, I've actually been an online freelancer since 2009. I started in digital marketing. Today, I'm a digital marketing strategist. So that means I plan, I manage, and I execute campaigns across platforms for clients. And I also report on the performance. So I help them meet their quarterly or their annual goals. In addition, I've also been focused on travel marketing for the past 6 years, and then 2 years in hotel marketing specifically. So after that work, I'm now a Google Hotel Ads account manager. So for Google EMEA, so the Google Europe HQ, I focus specifically on helping their clients build hotel marketing campaigns. So if you've searched for hotels near you, chances are you've seen the ads that we work on. So a little bit about what we'll be talking about today. So I think it's very important to ask ourselves if we want to be a generalist or if we want to be a specialist in today's environment. And I'll also be talking to you guys about what it means to be a generalist versus a specialist, how you can choose to be one, the other, or a mix of both. And then towards the end, I'm going to be showing you guys some tools that you can use so that you can start either expanding your skill set or building on the skills that you want. So let's start with the environment today. So COVID is changing the way that we work. When I was typing this slide, sasabihin ko sana COVID has changed the way we work, but the truth is it's still changing. So whatever we had January, February, March, whatever we thought was the baseline for new normal, changing pa rin yan. And it's not something scary, it's just something we have to be aware of. But what's also important to notice is that remote is becoming the new normal. So if before remote was an option, now it's kind of becoming the main thing. As long as my internet as long as you have the device to work from home, you can go online, you can work. And this is good news for us because bigger companies are thinking the same. So Google, for example, is set to work from home until June 2021. No questions asked. Like they prefer if you work from home. Twitter is working from home until further notice, so foreseeable future. Netflix is very strict work from home, for sure. Bahala ka, if you want to go to the office, there will be offices, but they prefer it. And it's the trend for a lot of big companies. Kahit sabihin nilang, some people do want to go to the office, and it's true, some people do want to be in an office environment. Even CEO Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, is saying they want a hybrid model. So this was actually a discussion for us in the office the other day. Like people are talking about going back into the office. I have people on our German team, they go into the office once a week. That's how they're trialing their new normal. And that's what their office experience is going to be for them until further notice. So your industry is now online. This goes across the board. Hindi lang digital marketing ang online ngayon. Now the new question is like, how many of your skills have you brought with you? And if you don't have them, what can you do? So this isn't just technical skills. It's not just do you know how to set up Microsoft Office on your own, or do you know how to set up sheets on Google Docs? It's also about your soft skills. So you might have noticed some people, machika sila in person, they're very good when it comes to talking to clients, but when you get online, the dynamic changes. You're not as good talking to people if you're on video, or you're not as confident if you're typing in chat. And this is something that it is not, again, not something to be scared of, but more of this is where we have to fill in the blanks. If we notice that you're only strong in one skill, do you want to expand, or do you want to build on that skill? So this is one of my favorite quotes. I think a lot of people get it wrong. Like they only start the first part. They say, jack of all trades, master of none. And again, not a bad thing. It's just, again, two differences. So jack of all trades, you know a lot of different things. You're not exactly specialized in one thing, but you have a broad base. In comparison, master of one, you're a specialist, you're an expert. So let's look at what it means to be a generalist, to be a jack of all trades, right? For the pros, one, able to cater to a broad audience. Dahil marami kang alam, marami kang pwedeng pagserbisyohan. It should also come as not as a surprise that generalists will have a wider range of services to offer. So you'll know a lot of different things that you can provide to a lot of different people. And because you know a lot of different things, you have a broad knowledge of related topics, you can tie them into each other. Now, if you're a freelancer, that also means that you can swap out your services very quickly. So for example, if what's in demand in your market right now is a content writer, you can do that. But when that demand goes down, you can pivot and you can use your other skills. For example, if you're also good at running social campaigns on Facebook, then you can pivot and do that when there's not a big demand for content. Another thing is that you can also provide clients with alternatives if a solution doesn't fit. So like a specialist who might only be able to offer you one solution, say they only do Facebook. If a client says, okay, I don't have budget for Facebook, or I'm not able to run my campaigns there because I do online gambling, then you can give them another option. You can say something like, okay, maybe we'll do SEO, or maybe we'll do press releases. And that's what it means to be a generalist, really. You can pivot, no? Lastly, a good pro for generalists is that it's easier to niche down. So if you're starting as a generalist and you notice, okay, parang mas maganda sa mga specialists, mas magandang content ngayon, there's more demand, you can focus on that. So downsides to being a generalist, or possible cons of being a generalist, is one, some specialized work will always be outside of your scope. So there's always going to be work that you'll have to pass on to a specialist eventually. And that's just the name of the game. Because you have so many other offerings, there will be some that you will have to pass on. There also might be more to manage in terms of project management. So unlike a specialist na isa lang yung magiging priority niya in a project, kasi specialist nga siya, a generalist will focus on, say, 2 or 3 different things, because a client would want 2 or 3 different things for them to focus on in a project. Another challenge and limitation for all of us, not something to be scared of, but it's impossible to cross-train for everything. So there will always be something that you don't know, something that you'll have to practice. The good thing is specialists are the same. They always do have to upskill. So this is both being a generalist and being a specialist requires being able to learn. It's just that even as a generalist, even if you want to go really, really broad, you can't go too broad then. So you can't just offer everything then. There's always going to be a new development, or maybe an older thing from your industry that you may not have experience in, and that's okay too. And I know this might be a big question for a lot of people. So if you're a generalist, traditionally industry rates might be lower than if you're a specialist. The opposite of that is, even though industry rates might be lower, so even though you might earn less as a generalist per project, you can offset that by doing a lot more things, because you would have a lot more service offerings. It's not that you'll earn less, it's just that for one specific offering, you might earn less than what a specialist would. So it's quantity versus quality. So I love this quote. I do recommend that you guys read this after. I'll make the deck available. But one thing I'd love to remind everyone is that whether you're a kid or whether you're in sports or a scientist, the skills that you'll need are the same. You need to be able to transfer knowledge. So as a generalist, you need to be able to problem solve. And the way that you set this is with much broad-based learning. So the great thing about having a generalist is that they know a lot of things and that they can apply their knowledge to problem solving in different scenarios. This is why it's always good to have a generalist around. Now, in comparison, we're looking at what's great for a specialist. So specialists, we do know them as the experts in their field. They would know their work inside and out. As a specialist, you will also have an easier time selling your services or finding your market, because normally with a specialist, there's already that demand. That's why you know that you want to specialize. It's like how you know that people want to be a doctor and spend 10 years, going into medicine. They know that there's going to be a demand at the end of that tunnel. And because we know what kind of expectations there are from a specialist, like they have to really know a lot about what they're specializing in, they can charge and earn more. So yeah, if you want to earn more for specific amount of work, this is where you can focus on. The other nice thing about being a specialist is work process is streamlined, like I mentioned earlier. So pagpapasok yung work sa'yo, alam mo na kagad kung anong gagawin mo, and you know your full scope. Kahit sabihin pa ng client sa'yo, kailangan ng revision, you know what you're revising. Walang sudden feedback from client na please add X, Y, and Z that may be completely different from what you're working on. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to be a specialist. Okay, so possible downsides of being a specialist that you'd have to prepare for is when you have no filler services. So if you're good at just Facebook and there's no demand for Facebook, it's going to be hard for you to kind of fill that in. Another thing is that your market might be too narrow for consistent work. So for example, certain programming languages, like they're not always in demand or they're not being regularly used or popularly used anymore in business. So you might only get a call now and again to maintain or to restore devices that would be running those older programming languages. Another potential limitation for specialists is that you can limit your ability to expand your business. So for example, if you really, really want to specialize in hotels, like what I'm doing now, there's a chance that I might not be able to pivot out if I choose to specialize too much. So I'm always just going to be working with hotels, even though there might be a bigger demand for like vacation rentals, like you've seen Airbnb. So that's a possible challenge for being a specialist. Another thing is that you can risk going out of business if your specialty becomes obsolete. So big example here is there was this cupcake shop, so Sex and the City. It was like the most popular cupcake shop in New York for 20 years after it got featured in Sex and the City. And then mga 2014, after all of the other trends came in, yung mga cronuts, the donuts, all that, no one wanted cupcakes anymore. They went from about 20 stores around New York to one store, and they had to shutter that in 2014. And that's the risk of becoming that's the biggest risk of becoming a specialist. The stronger your competitive position in a market niche, so the more aggressive you are in a market, the more vulnerable you are to eventually being disrupted by changes in the business environment. And what's important to remember about that business environment is that it's really powered by the demand of the people. So kung anong gusto ng tao. Another good example of this is emeralds. So emeralds are rarer than diamonds. They're 20% rarer than diamonds. They're that hard to find, and they're usually more expensive. But because diamonds are very, very popular, and they have been popular for the last couple of years, people demand them more. And this makes sense throughout history. Emeralds have always been really popular. Like if you read a book, you'll notice like you see them on like the queen's yung kanyang jewelry, yung royal jewelry niya. But the challenge there is that sorry to Siri. But the challenge there is, yun nga, now they're not so popular. Now everyone wants a diamond ring for their wedding ring, not an emerald ring. Okay, so what's a possible solution to this? Maybe you're a generalist and you feel like you want to focus on one niche, or maybe you noticed specialist ka, like you have this one skill, but you feel like you might be limiting yourself in your market. So the option is to develop yourself into being a T-shaped person. This is the kind of people that businesses are looking for now. So someone who knows a lot about one thing, but can wear a lot of different hats. So they have a wider range of expertise. And this sounds challenging. So let me just give you an example of what that might mean. So generalizing specialist. So simula ka na generalist, maybe simula ka na digital marketer. And later on you focus on a specific market or a specific product, like travel for a market or hotel ads for a product. Then you become a generalizing specialist. You still know enough about your industry, but you focus on that one product or one market. In comparison to a specializing generalist, someone who starts out as a specialist. So if I had gone the other way, if I started out just in hotels and then continued to expand to the rest of digital marketing, I would have been a specializing generalist. But again, both of these things you can build on. So if you find yourself as a generalist, you can pivot to become a specialist, or you can expand your knowledge base. Pwede rin yan. And if you're a specialist, you can continue to learn and you can continue to learn different skills. So you can also be a generalist, or you can continue to specialize, like I did when I was focusing on hotel marketing, and then I focused further into Google Ads. Now, in choosing a path, so because we don't always start out as generalists or specialists, some of the things that you can do is to, first of all, find your depth. So hopefully by the time that we're done with this talk, for example, you can identify some of your core skills, your core digital skills, and which of them that you want to build on. After that it's very important to lean into what you like. So determine which aspects of the business you enjoy the most. It's a little different from finding your depth, kasi iba yung core skills sa kung anong gusto mong gawin, or the thing that you find yourself doing at work the most often that's enjoyable to you. The reason why I'm suggesting this is because everything's online. There's a chance that you might not notice that time's going and you're overworking yourself, or you might notice that you'll have a different schedule from that of your clients. For example, sometimes I wake up late. Like sometimes I start my day 11 a.m. and I like having like a quiet morning, and other people are like super, super busy like by that time. Leaning into what I like also helped me choose my clients. So for example, hoteliers that I work with, some of them, I'm not going to hear from them until the next quarter. I only hear from them once a quarter. Some of them, I only hear from them twice a week over email. It helped me, but leaning into what I liked helped me choose whether I wanted to work with those clients or whether I wanted to work with clients who were busier or who had more demands. Another thing to remember, and this is probably the most important one, is to upskill regularly. So whether you choose to be a generalist or a specialist, you have to keep up to date with your industry. You have to know what's happening. You have to know what's new. And luckily, you can do that for free. So by the end of this, I will be including a toolkit that has a list of websites that you can use for free certificates in e-courses. And you can list those on your LinkedIn profile. So this is really useful advice. If you want people to notice your certificates, list them somewhere public. So put them up on LinkedIn. Things I wish I knew back then. So things I wish I knew when I started my career in online freelancing. Because I don't think that was even a thing before, right? Like doing a career online was such a big question mark. So no one ever starts out as a generalist in their field. If someone tells you that they already know everything in the field and they're just starting, I'm sorry, but they're probably not telling you the truth. So it's important to start out as like, even generalists choose one topic to start with. You have to start one topic to learn about and then expand. That's okay. Two is specialists have to constantly practice and learn in order to stay specialists. Like even if the the skill that you have, you feel is already obsolete because it's old, you still have to keep reminding yourselves, you still have to keep learning that skill over and over again. It's muscle memory. You have to build on that skill. Third is, don't be afraid to automate. If there's anything that you can use a tool for, or if there's anything that you can use technology for to make your life easier, do it. Don't be afraid. A lot of the jobs that we have right now, we couldn't even imagine 20 years ago. They didn't exist. So if the fear is that you might not have a role if you automate, that's not what technology is for. Technology is here to help us. So we're constantly building the new together. That's you, that's me, that's everyone who goes online and puts their data for Google or Facebook together. You will have a place in your industry for as long as it suits you. Okay, and then toolkit. So like I said, you'll also be able to download this later. I'll be sending it to everyone. I'll also have it on my website. But these are a couple of sites where you can get free courses, so you can get certified and you can choose which skills are interesting to you. So there's no right or wrong selections here. It's more of just finding which websites cater more to your style of learning. So I know some people, for example, who swear by Coursera. Yun talaga yung gusto nilang ginagamit in order to learn. While as me, I like listening to things habang I'm working on something else. So I use iTunes Free You. So it's really just deciding on what you're more comfortable with. Again, no right or wrong. It's all just learning. And that's it from me. Thank you, everyone. And on to the question.
Very funny, some of your notes, because we have worked for the same client. And I can really identify which one yung very busy. I know who that is.
Yes.
Right. So I guess my first question is, and it has been asked when I was also speaking with moms, because they were asking about, should I specialize? Ganyan. When did you decide to specialize on something?
Nice.
Oh, good question. Okay, so when did I decide to specialize? It was in 2012, I want to say, and it wasn't a work decision that made me do it. It was because my aunt had a stroke, so I had to be the one to take care of her. So that's when I realized the vertical that was going to help me do that the most was travel. I was working with a travel company, and they needed a digital marketer. They didn't really care where I was based, so they were like, "Sure, stay remote," and I went for it. But I also had to decide, and I think this is important to remember, when I decided that I was going to specialize, I also had to take into account everything that was going to happen with that. So I knew there were certain events I wouldn't be going to anymore, certain contacts that wouldn't find my information as valuable anymore because I was going to niche down.
Okay. Because there are many new freelancers. So is there a requirement before you can specialize? So do you have to be already working for 3 years before you can specialize? Or if you're a new freelancer, can you already have your eyes set on a specific specialization that you'd like to do or work on?
Great question. So for this, I think it's better to give you kind of an example of onboarding internally in corporate. So when I got hired in Google EMEA, it's 6 months onboarding. During that time, I would recommend the same if you're freelancing, because during that time, it was knowing your book of business. So knowing my potential clients, who I was going to work with, who I wanted to work with, as well as understanding the product. If I was going to be promoting a product or a service, gaano ko ka-familiar sa kanya? If there were any issues, could I troubleshoot? And this is important too if you're a freelancer. If you cannot troubleshoot, kanino mo ipapasa? If you're not skilled with that. So that's something you have to ask yourself as a specialist. If something breaks or if something doesn't work the way it should, who's going to answer for it? Or who can you pass it on to? And that, because that's part of what it means to become a specialist and knowing the right people then.
Yeah.
All right.
Dennis, do you also have some questions for Sam?
Yeah, we do have a question from our FB viewer. The question here is, who are usually more successful, the generalists or the specialist ones?
Oh, that nice question. Sige. No, so who's more successful, right? The thing is with because we have T-shaped people now, even if before it would have looked like maybe a specialist was more successful, now it's really a mix of both. Like you need to be a little bit of a generalist in order to adapt to different scenarios at work, especially for example for people who want to be in our industry, so in the digital marketing industry, because everything is changing very fast. You need to be able to adapt. So kailangan na talaga maging generalist. But if again you want to specialize because there's so many new developments, you can do that. You can be that T-shaped person.
So both,
Right.
basically,
Yes.
whether you're a generalist or specialist.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. How specific should you go? Because in our case, for example, some people already view us as a specialist, but I know that kasi nga, di ba, even with Facebook ads, you have there are so many things that you can do. You can specialize on. So, how specific should you be for you to be called a specialist already?
Okay, so how specific? This is okay. So this is a little bit of a tricky question because I am a generalist and a specialist, for example, many times over. So I can also be called, for example, a digital marketing specialist because I do a lot of digital marketing. And this is where, again, you have to find what you want to lean into because this will also determine the kind of clients that you have. Because when I say I'm a digital marketing specialist, for example, I normally work with small to mid-sized businesses because yun yung kaya kong pwedeng, yun yung workload na kaya ko as a digital marketing specialist. As a hotel ad specialist, for example, I can handle about 100 clients because that's what their demand is. So you have to understand the workload that comes with the client base.
Is it also important to identify your industry? Because we noticed that ikaw, di ba, you said specifically for hotels.
Yes.
So in order for you to become a specialist, you need to choose?
Industry, well, there's a couple of things that you can choose according to your specialization, diba? So for example, by industry, my vertical is travel. But again, there's also that product. So I'm focused on hotel ads because it's the only product type that's like it. I see Microsoft, they've cloned it pretty much. But it's in terms of software, it's very specific in its functions. So you also have to, if you're focusing on a vertical, for example, that's still a little bit general. There's going to be a lot of things. Like in travel, there's going to be a lot of different aspects. So you also have to think about, do you want to focus on a product? Do you want to focus on an industry? Because that will kind of answer itself.
Okay. So I'm just curious. So this is a bit off topic. How is the hotel industry doing? Just in case meron dyan gusto mag-enter into the hotel industry.
The hotel industry it's on the rebound. So there was that initial dip in March, and we did see a pickup as people tried to pivot and address new concerns for people who still wanted to travel April, May, and June. We saw that slight pickup. It is going down again due to seasonality and new restrictions, but it should come up again at the end of the year. It's still like, for example, within Google, it's still the third largest market. So there's movement, but the travel industry has really been hit, and that's a challenge.
So, because of the COVID situation, have you also considered maybe I'll choose a different industry this time, or are you still committed to this? And is everything doing well naman for you as a digital marketer, ads manager?
Great question. I am actually so excited to be doing this right now. And I realize that sounds really funny since like nothing is moving. But with the pandemic, may bago kaming baseline. So we have like a complete blank slate to start with all of our products, with everything that we're doing. and we can see what the new targets are for people now that they've experienced a pandemic, because this might not, and these are the kind of things you have to think about for the future, diba? What if things change after this? What if there's another epidemic after this? How do we adapt?
Yeah.
And it's nice to be at the start of things. Like we like calling ourselves a startup within Google, and I think that's very relevant. Kasi yun yung mindset ng hotel ads. You have to build for this new environment.
All right.
So, very solid pa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Miss Jess, we have a question here from our viewer also. So, which one is harder, going from generalist to specialist, or from specialist going to generalist?
Definitely harder to be a specialist going on to generalist. Like, I don't want to scare you guys. Don't worry, you're in obvious demand kasi specialist kayo, so that's the good part. But it will be challenging to upskill and expand your knowledge base if you're working from one thing. So just keep at it, just keep going. But there will be a learning curve.
And we do have a follow-up question. I guess this question has a relation with the question a while ago, which is, have you started as generalist or specialist, and then what made you decide?
Okay, so I started like I started in content marketing for freelance. And what made me pivot aside from family was that travel was always something that I was interested in. Hotels was actually the first thing that I was working with. And I noticed after doing 6 years in other industries, working with other companies and consulting, that it was really the market that I wanted to work in. Like, I can imagine myself retiring in travel, maybe not hotels, but definitely within the travel industry. And it doesn't matter who I work for. Like, I'm happy in that industry.
And with your answer, how to figure out the right market for me, or how to specialize the right market?
Oh, okay. So this is something you have to have a sit down with yourself, and you have to ask yourself, like, really simple pros and cons. What do I like doing? What do I not want to deal with? And it's what you don't want to deal with that's going to really define how you're going to build your career. No, but it's important to know about those things very early on. If you know, for example, you don't want to deal with a client with 100 revisions, then you have to build on being a specialist who doesn't accept 100 revisions. But yeah, know your baseline, establish what you want and you don't want to do. It's more important that you know yourself, and the answers will come to you.
All right. Miss Jessica, maybe you have questions?
Sandali lang ha. I had so many questions.
Yes.
Especially since you started with content. How do you...
Yeah.
It's very difficult, especially if you start on something that you know you're good at. So for example, we do have a lot. Let me rephrase that. One of the easiest ways for people to get in is they start out as writers, general writers, which is sort of like where you also started with content marketing. But how did it get from content tapos biglang, hindi naman bigla, I know that it took several years of like one company to another before you finally decided to work on your specialization. Pero I just wanted to present to people na Sam didn't start with ads. She started really with content. So how was the journey there na umabot ka with PPC, with ads?
Okay, so great question, especially since, Jessie, I know you were there for the content part when I was the content manager. So for me, it started with like where the content was going. So where we were publishing content, there were already different types of content that we were publishing: PDF, video, short form, long form. And me wanting to know, one, where else can the content go and what content variations I could play with. And I think it was also very timely because analytics came in at the time and it was becoming more robust. And that's really, this is a big thing for me. And maybe you guys will find something similar, but I really love seeing the data. So I really love seeing the results of what I was doing. That's what drove me. And I realized, like, as you've seen with ads, short content sells. Sometimes it's just a headline that people need. So that's what made me ultimately pivot to PPC. It was the quickness of that messaging and being able to see how people responded.
Because very different, very different skills. When you write, sabi nila, very right brain ka. But then analytics ads, it's very left brained also, very numbers, kanya looking at data. So it's possible for you to start on a kind of different niche, and then
Yes.
as you specialize, move to another skill set talaga altogether.
Yes, and that entire that entire amount of time where you're trying to decide and you're just really picking up skills. That's what it means to be a generalist. Where you're just it's not about like what you're focused on doing, but the skills that you acquire as you're doing it.
How much time do you still dedicate to learning? Na specialist
gosh.
ka na.
So I renew my certificates every year for digital marketing. That's Google. I haven't done my Facebook this year. Bing. There's also HubSpot, and then there's SEMrush. So there's about.
Ang dami pa rin,
10 or
Sam.
so
Ang
each.
dami
Yes.
masyado.
No, but that's why that's why it's important to kind of focus on what you want. Kasi continuous and it doesn't always have to be the same thing. Like there's times where I just play yung mga videos sa LinkedIn Learning in the background just to see if there's anything. If you want a good place to start, if it's all for digital, I strongly recommend Google's Digital Garage. They have a certificate on the fundamentals of digital marketing that you can get started with. Because from there, you can, from their course materials, you can also kind of see which digital elements you might want to work with more. But yes, marami pa rin. Always learn.
All right. Ms. Jess, let me have this question. Okay. So I think this question came from our viewer also. If you want to venture into two businesses with different industry, like for example, Elon Musk, Tesla, and SpaceX, is that generalist or specialist?
That's a
So
philanthropist.
you're venturing into two businesses or industries.
See, this is a scary question because Elon is, I believe, a specialist because his specialty is being able to invest in the right thing. So, yeah. But in terms of, but you have to remember, Tesla came first.
Yes.
So even if he's venturing into two businesses, something came first. So that's why it's still he's still a specialist, and he's still in automotive and transport.
Right. So I hope that question has been answered by Ms. Samantha, and our viewer is satisfied with it. So I guess our viewer also is asking for your presentation. Will it be available for them?
Yeah, so after this, I'll be emailing it to you guys. I'll also have it available on my website today. If any of you guys have any questions, because I know that it's like some of these are a little bit too general. If you have any questions about the digital marketing industry or you want to learn more, you can also ask me, you can email me. My contacts will be available.
Okay. I have another question, Sam, but this is more for the medyo how many years na already freelancing like me. So some of them are already managing their own teams, kanyan.
Yeah.
Do you still have to specialize on something? Especially when you have generalists and specialists in your team, do you still need to choose a specific skill that you have to specialize on?
One, if you want to. So if the need is there, of course. Two, who says you're not a specialist if you're already managing teams? Like we have what we call people managers whose core skill is being able to keep the team together. And this is one of the things that people tend to overlook. It's like machika ka. It's like they just think some bosses are not. But people skills are still very much important, even more now that we're all online and we drop a lot of, day-to-day average basic communication. So don't ever think you're not a specialist just because it's not on paper or that you do have to specialize if you already feel like you already have those skills and you want to keep it as is.
So when you're already managing teams, wag masyadong super pressure na, oh, kailangan meron pa rin ako, I'm still updated on things.
Well, I mean, this is this is more about scaling up, diba? Like, if you have a generalist and a specialist, what feedback can they give you and what do you get from there? And that's what makes you a better people manager, and that's what makes you a specialist in your own right.
All right.
Okay, any other questions, you guys?
Miss Jess?
Okay.
Yes.
It was ano kasi I think the presentation was also very specific.
Great, yes.
And also when it comes to your journey. And individual kasi 'di ba ang experiences where you decide to become a specialist or if you want to retain being a generalist. So kung mag-decide sila na gusto ko lang maging generalist talaga, is that okay? Is it still possible for them to get high pay kahit generalist sila?
Yes, but there will be more work. Like, this is something I like I've been a generalist. Like, I've done, like, when I say I've been a generalist, I mean I've launched websites wherein I was the one who did the SEO, I was the one who ran the PPC, I was the one who ran the social media. And yes, it's a small website with a small market, but I still had to handle all of that. And yes, you can actually earn, like, because sometimes specialists, di ba, mababa ang demand. Sometimes you can earn more because, like, sometimes there's just months wherein there's more demand for other work that specialists wouldn't be able to do. But yeah, be prepared for if not a bigger workload, just more aspects to worry about in general if you're a generalist.
Are there specific countries that really look for specialists? Kasi kunwari dito sa Philippines, a lot of companies are still very new to digital marketing. So hindi sila masyadong naghahanap ng specialists. They're more someone who can manage social media. Tapos may marketing team din, may ganyan-ganyan. But in other countries, ano bang mga in demand na let's start with digital marketing. Mga very in demand na specialists.
For digital marketing, so product specialists are very in demand in other countries. So one of the easiest way for you to freelance in another country is if you focus on, if you become a specialist for a specific product. This is why I had to say iba yung Google Hotel Ads, focusing on the travel industry. Because that hotel ads is a very specific product with a very specific function. Another example would be like a PPC specialist. So Google Ads and Microsoft Ads lang hawak mo. Yandex also has certification. So for example, in Eastern European markets, that's one of them. That's one of the search engines that you would have to get certified for. Specialists are more in demand in other countries because, well, similar to the Philippines, they would already have generalists. They would already have people trying to freelance. It's more of they're trying to build on those core skills, or they're trying to build teams after finding generalists.
So if you don't mind me asking, for your level and your specific industry, how much is the minimum rate, say, per hour?
Okay, with per hour. Okay, so as a consultant within Europe, I can give you my rates. I think that's fair. So as a consultant within Europe, I have a minimum of 50 euro an hour, and that's already so that depends on whether the client would want a big or a small project. Basta yun yung baseline ko, and then it can go up or down depending. But that already counts what I can imagine doing in a single hour, like the amount of work I'm willing to do in an hour.
Nakikita ko si Dennis pa nagmamahal.
I've heard a word consultant. I guess I have a question here.
Yes.
So which sounds better, being a specialist or being a consultant? Because I've heard you said being a consultant rates for almost 50 euros per hour. So which one is better, to be a specialist or being a consultant, or are they just the same?
Okay, so so in my case, they're pretty much the same. The consultancy, normally kasi here, when you say consultant, it means that you're doing it on your own. Or that you're actually not holding the product, you're just advising on it, on how it can be done, how the flow of work can be handled, who you need. So it's like manager for hire. So a consultant, you can normally, you can normally charge higher than what you would for a specialist. But a consultant is like complete hybridized model. You give what the client requires.
How many years usually before you can become a consultant?
That's the right
Depends
question.
I wouldn't determine it in years. I would determine it in your product and industry knowledge. Kailangan combined yan. And it has to be like, this is where niching down is really important, because most of the businesses I've found that need consultants are the one who they've hit like a stalemate in business growth. Sometimes they don't know how to scale up. They already have all of these operations. They want to do more. So maybe they want to add something like, they've done all social media. They want to add SEO to the mix. So they bring me in, a consultant. I would advise to how they build their teams, how they develop their work there. And then that's what I'm consulting for.
Yeah, because I know a guy na ang specific industry niya are banks. So,
wow. Very
yeah,
cool.
it's still marketing, but it's for different banks. As in, banks lang talaga. Kumbaga, money or cooperatives na madaming pera, ganyan. Daming masyadong pera. So, they would get him. Tapos, yan lang talaga ang industry. It doesn't work a lot, but his rates are like really, really high. They fly him in just to consult with him. So,
see, that's the thing. But you can, it's also defining your market. This is why I keep going back to, you have to define what you kind of want to do. Because going by your example, he can actually even earn, or someone else can even earn more by focusing on a specific region.
Yeah.
So, for example, I know someone who only works with Netherlands. Like that's his client base. It's a very mature client base, but they're all high spenders. And it's about determining that.
Yeah. And yun, I forgot my other. Okay. So, Sam, 50 euros per hour now. What rate did you start? Para ma-inspire naman dyan ang mga bagong freelancers.
Okay. So,
and what year? What year was it?
Para ma-inspire. True style.
Yeah.
Yes.
My first freelancing job was on Craigslist. Buhay pa ba ang Craigslist? It was all text. I didn't know what I was applying for. They just said someone who understands hotels and is willing to write. I didn't know it was hotel marketing strategies. My boss there is actually still working in the travel industry. But my first paycheck with him was like 15,000 pesos in 2009. And I was already like so excited. It was like the biggest amount of money I had ever held in my life at the time. But yeah, it can only go up from there, guys.
So yung first mo is already hotel talaga.
Yeah, but it was like pure content. It wasn't even content. I was transcribing audio recording. So he would be interviewing people and I would transcribe. And then when it would go up on a podcast, we would link the content to a blog and then I would post the transcripts. Like it was talagang content.
Yeah. Layo-layo, no? I mean,
it's important to be a generalist.
Yeah.
Like you have to taste all the wonders of the world, diba? See what suits you.
Yeah, and there's bigger appreciation. Kasi, diba, when the boss says, get someone to do this, and then he expects it to be finished in 1 hour. But since you've experienced doing it before, you say, no, it takes at least 5 hours for someone to complete this job. So far out the expectations, only if you have experience, right?
Yes, like, I mean, it's harder to push back as a generalist kasi pag specialist ka, people just take your word for it. Like, oh, okay, it takes that long. But a generalist, like, you have options to compare. You can also say, okay, I don't want it to take that long, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And you have to be okay with that. And the client might not understand it, what you're doing to make things, to expedite things, but you have that option.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we have a question here from Angelique. Maybe she is wondering, can you self-proclaim that you are an expert in a specific niche, even if you're just 3 years on it?
Ganda yan na question.
Can you self-proclaim?
Yes.
Okay.
even if you're
So
just
this
3
is
years on it.
tricky. Okay. So if okay. So first of all, don't say it's only 3 years. 2 years was all I need to niche down to hotel ads. So don't say it's only 3 years. Congratulations on those 3 years. You worked hard. Can you say you're a specialist? Yes. Yes, you can say you're a specialist. If you feel like you're familiar with the product, gusto mo ang kaninyang specialist title, take it. But the more important thing is that other people have to agree with you, and this is something we have to remember. So if no, it's true. So if you need to get reviews, if you want to be that confident, get reviews from your clients. Have them post it on LinkedIn. If you want to call yourself a specialist, good. But it's better if other people do it for you.
And ang okay naman sa industry natin is we can always have data to back up our claim.
Yes.
So, yung mga case studies, prepare case studies of your clients, your achievements, para at least pag may mag-question, here's my proof.
It's readily available online.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, a follow-up question. What are your inspiration to be a specialist, especially for our speaker?
So
What are your
inspired
inspirations?
me?
Yes.
What inspired me? Oh God, you know what? This is gonna sound so silly, but really the pandemic is just making me want to specialize more because, guys, all of the data that's coming in from this 1 year where everything changed is crazy. Like there's so much we can learn from this 1 year in terms of what's new in the industries, how they're changing, how they're gonna keep on changing after this. Because people are learning, even us, we're changing. So people are learning to take more time for themselves, more time at home, have a better work-life balance. So I'm just one of those people that I like new things. I like new and different things. I love exploring. I consider myself an adventurer. So yeah, like this year is an adventure. It's like my biggest inspiration so far.
This is in connection to the differences in location. So you're in Dublin. So when you apply for jobs or when someone hires you, they sort of expect okay, Dublin rate. Now, would it be possible for Filipinos in the Philippines to be able to charge higher on something that they specialize on? Because there's always this assumption, from India, from Philippines, so rate is just like this. So, kaya bang kumuha ng project that pays really good for their specialization?
100%. I was already doing that before I left Manila. Like, again, this is about finding your clientele, no? So once you've decided to niche down, you have to narrow down who you want to work with. In my case, I was doing very specifically travel and a little bit of I think I was doing real estate at the time, but it was for California. So it was for an area that I was very familiar with. So it was easy for me to charge a little bit more than what was the industry standard because I already knew what I was writing about. I was very familiar with it. And that's the thing, play to your strengths. If you're very familiar with something, for example, healthcare, if you're good with the technical terms in healthcare, then you can compete by all means. Don't charge yourself any less because you think mas mababa ang electricity sa Manila. Don't ever sell yourself short. Really, because it also impacts your industry, diba? If you say, I'm going to bid really low, because that way I can get a job. Like that doesn't work. We've seen it in Upwork where there's a lot of people who bid really low, and it just brings down the level of service. So no, if you feel like your work is quality and that you want to charge that much, charge that much, because the two things will happen: either you don't get clients and you have to adjust, or you get the right client who will pay you for what you want to do at the rate that you want. And that's what we all want as freelancers.
Yes. All right.
Right. So I guess I'm into it. Ang dami nating mga tanong, talagang full pack yung ating conversation and the intensity of our conversation as well. So Miss Jellic, may I have the presentation? Hello? Ako okay na ako sa mga questions. Miss Jessica, how about you?
Yeah, I think the questions that was provided also by by other people na sabi ko, oh, we're going to talk about this. So, yun exactly. There are a lot of questions about rates, of course.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. Okay, so with that, we're going to give this certification of appreciation to Ms. Samantha Michelle
Oh, thank you
Salazar.
guys.
Yes, welcome. So for being a resource person on the webinar session entitled Being a Generalist versus Being a Specialist, initiated by the Filipino Online Professional Service Cooperative, or the FOPSCo Academy, held on this particular date, October 2020, signed by Ms. Rachel Rivera, our chairperson, and Dennis Baguio. And Ms. Samantha, go ahead. Any parting words?
No, just if you guys have any other questions, hit me up. That's what I'm here for. I'm happy to be a resource person for the industry. And more power to all of you. I hope to see all of you guys within the industry in some way, shape, or form. Add me up on LinkedIn. I want to see what you guys do.
All right. Hi, Ms. Jessica. Any parting words?
I hope that a lot of people were really inspired by Sam. So, kasi si Sam, we only met online and we worked together. So, it's really very interesting to see how each other's career grew. So, I hope that also inspires the freelancers who are still starting. Yes, you can reach 50 euros per hour level. Yay.
Okay, so again, thank you for joining and watching us on this webinar series brought to you by the FOPSCo Academy. So make sure to subscribe our FOPSCo YouTube channel and like our FOPSCo FB page para wala naman kayong mamiss na show. And if you found value on this show, pakishare naman po. And of course, that would help us a lot. And again, this is Dennis Baguio here in FOPSCo. We grow together. Thank you, guys.
Bye. Thanks, Sam.
Bye.
All right.